Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. We still have 9 excuses to go through. But I'm thinking we may not go through all of them, and I know that a lot of you had questions, so I'm thinking maybe to just do an open session where we can have questions and answers, and if there are any particular excuses that you want to talk about, then we can talk about those. How do you feel about that? Is that okay?
Yes.
Rather than me going 9, 10, 11 like that. Yes?
There is some new people. Could you introduce it?
Oh, okay, yes. All right. So, because it's a Sunday feast. I forgot about that, yes. Okay, so welcome to those who are coming for this lecture and coming this afternoon. So what we've been doing for the last couple of days is looking at many of the arguments, excuses, reasonings that people may give why they don't want to embark on the spiritual journey. So we've been looking at things like people saying spirituality is sentimental, whereas I'm a scientist. And how would Krishna respond to that from the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita? Some people say I don't have time. Some people say I have too many duties. Some people say I'll do it in the future. So how do all of these excuses, how are they addressed by Krishna? So we'll have a little bit of a question and answer as we continue. Maybe you have some questions from the previous excuses, or you have another excuse that you would like to bring up, and then we can see what Krishna may say. Is that okay? All right, so I hand over to you to begin. Yes, Subal there, quick off the blocks. Okay, go for it. Okay, sure.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you for this wonderful presentation about excuses. I would like to share one statement that I heard in one lecture, and it goes like this: excuses are like armpits. Everybody has at least 2, and all of them are smelly. And I have one more excuse.
I'll use that one.
Yeah, I like that as well. So I have one more excuse that I'd like to add that sometimes my mind creates when it comes to my spiritual life. And it's just that sometimes I think to myself, I'm not going to chant, I'm not going to read, because if I chant right now, I'm not going to give my full attention to it. Or if I read right now, then it's also, I feel like my state of mind is not so good, and it's not going to give me so much benefit. So that's the excuse that I sometimes use in my day-to-day practice. So how would you tackle that issue?
Yeah, thank you so much. So sometimes we have a kind of perfectionist mentality whereby we say, I'm only going to do something if I give 100%, if I give all my full attention. The first way we kind of address that is by asking ourselves, when have we given our full attention? Has there ever been a time when we've been fully absorbed in the holy name, when we've been fully absorbed in the scriptures? We tend to be divided personalities. Our heart is in one place, our mind is in another, and our eyes are somewhere else. We just tend to be, as living beings, very, very divided in how our different functions, where their attention is going. So the first thing is we can realize that practically to be fully immersed in something is actually something that most people can't do in anything. whether material or spiritual. It's just the nature of the mind, the uncontrolled mind, whereby the mind will always be somewhere else. And therefore, when Krishna advises Arjuna, he says in a very beautiful verse, Yado yado nischalati manaschanchalamasstiram tatastato niyam yetad atmanyeva vasamnayet. He doesn't say, Arjuna, if your mind wanders, maybe your mind will wander. If you somehow find that you experience this phenomenon of your mind wandering, Krishna says, from wherever your mind wanders. In other words, it will happen. What does Krishna say? Atmanyeva vasamnayet. Just keep bringing it back. So, did you know that when a plane goes from one destination to another, there is a flight path? So I just came on a flight from Kuala Lumpur to London, and there's a flight path. Now the interesting thing for anyone who's a pilot is that an aeroplane is only ever on the flight path for about 30% of the journey. That's the interesting thing. For 70% of the journey, the aeroplane is actually off the flight path. But after a certain number of hours, the plane still reaches its destination. Why? Because the pilot is always trying to come back to the flight path. The goal of life is to be on the flight path, but the reality is we'll never be on the flight path. The reality is for 100% or 70% of our spiritual practice, we're going to be off the flight path. But the point is, the great opportunity we have is to keep coming back to the flight path. And it's in that endeavor to keep coming back while we're absorbed in some spiritual practice that we make the advancement. Because there'll never be a time when we enter into a spiritual practice and are just 100% there. I mean, we hope one day, but realistically, it will never happen. So the success is in bringing your mind back. That's the success. That's the fight that Krishna wants to see you endeavor for. And when Krishna sees that, then he gives you the strength. He gives you the accomplishment to actually keep your mind there. And so, to say that I'll only do it when I'm definitely going to be there is like saying I'm only going to go on the aeroplane journey if I'm going to be on the flight path for 100%. It will never happen. But we can say, let me go on the journey and I'll come off. But it's okay. I'll just keep trying to get back, and in the end I'll reach my destination. That's therefore progress, not perfection. Does that help?
So, Maharaj, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Do we use the word perfection in spirituality?
Can you use the mic?
Yeah. Prabhuji, do we use the word perfection in spirituality?
Do we use the word perfection in spirituality? Krishna uses it in the final chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He talks about the perfection of renunciation. Srila Prabhupada uses it in the book titles. He talks about the perfection of yoga. And Krishna uses it because even in Ishopanishad we say Om Purna Madapurnamidam Purna Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. And Purna means perfect. The world is perfect. Krishna is perfect. We are perfect. And the world is perfect. That's amazing. Have you ever thought about that? The world is actually perfect. It's perfectly imperfect. Even the world is perfect. We are perfect because we come from Krishna. Because Krishna is perfect and complete, anything which comes from Krishna has to be perfect and complete. Therefore there is perfection.
But we as human beings, we try to achieve our definition of perfection. But how do you define this?
What is the definition of perfection for us? The definition of perfection for us is to be perfect in our position. Perfection doesn't mean to become God. perfection means to become a perfect servant of God. Because Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das. The Jiva has a Swarup, an original position. And what is that original position? To be a servant of Krishna. So the moment you're a perfect servant, you've achieved perfection. That's perfection. Okay. Actually, before Gauranitai asks his question, I'm going to ask him to also... He told me something interesting this morning about the phenomenon of the 100th monkey. Would you like to hear?
Yes.
Because all of us are here, we're chanting, we're doing this wonderful retreat this weekend, and we may not be aware, but it's actually having an effect on the whole of Sweden. Did you know that? Scandinavia. The world. And if you want to know why, Gauranitai Prabhu is going to tell you the science. Would you like to know?
So, first of all, I would like to ask forgiveness for taking time and speaking in the presence of Maharaj and so many of my seniors. But I posed a challenge to Maharaj yesterday that can we scientifically quantify our sitting down and chanting Hare Krishna for such a long time every day, having Sankirtan, sitting and glorifying the Lord, while the world in so many ways is going to hell. And we are often are we doing something about, but often we're not. Like, it could seem so. Maharaj, you replied that, well, for us we believe and we have this, we can feel empowered by thinking and, in one sense, knowing that we can make a difference just by our prayers and our beliefs and our practices. But actually I discovered an interesting scientific discovery that happened in the 1950s on some Japanese islands, where a team of scientists, they were studying social behavioral patterns, and they observed a group of monkeys. These monkeys, they nourished themselves by eating sweet potatoes. And so the team of scientists, they wanted to see if they were able to introduce a new pattern in the behavior of these monkeys. So they took one monkey from the tribe and isolated that monkey. What they did is that they taught the monkey how to peel the sweet potato on a rock. Remove the peel, remove the skin, so that the sweet potato, it would be more tasty. Wash off the dirt. And so they did that for a couple of days, for a week or so, and then they released the monkey back to the flock. And sure enough, the monkey had discovered that, well, this sweet potato is so much better than what I used to eat. So it would keep doing the same thing. And the other monkeys, they were observing, and they noted that something strange was happening. And then they tried to experiment. And they found out, well, if we peel our sweet potatoes, they will taste better. So the whole flock started now peeling their sweet potatoes. This phenomena then started spreading all over this island. And within a few months, all of the monkeys on the island, they would now be eating peeled sweet potato. Now the interesting thing that the scientists then they discovered, that they got reports that on neighboring islands, monkeys, there was no ferries, there was no flights, no contact in between these monkeys on these neighboring islands, but suddenly the neighboring monkeys on the neighboring islands, they would start peeling their sweet potatoes too. So the scientists, they coined this term called the noosphere, just as we have a biosphere around the earth, our climate. Then the noosphere is the atmosphere of ideas. And scientists, they have recognized that our consciousness, our thoughts and our emotions, they resonate. They emit a frequency. This is like, it's electric, it's magnetic. And
it has an effect.
It has a physical effect on the world. And in the same way, if you take a tuning fork, if you take two tuning forks and you hit one of them, then the other one, it will start vibrating as well and emitting a sound. If you just take one tuning fork, you hit it, it will vibrate and make a sound. But if you have two, not only will the first tuning fork vibrate and the second will vibrate, but the vibration of the second tuning fork will bounce back on the original and make it even more powerful. This is the concept of resonance. So if we think about that, and then we look at a phenomenon in the Bhagavatam, where you have 5,000 years ago, 88,000 sages sitting down in Naimisharanya and acknowledging that the Kali Yuga is about to commence. And so, what do they do about it? They sit down and have Krishna Katha. 88,000 sages elevating their
Sweet
consciousness.
potato.
Exactly. Exactly. Peeling their potatoes.
So the lesson is, while you're relishing prasadam here, the vibes are going out to everyone. Everyone's getting attracted to prasadam. Thank you so much for sharing. Very interesting. I thought that was very interesting. Thank you so much.
I think it's also very empowering for those of us who are not on the front line necessarily, like out in the preaching field, that when we sit down and we chant our rounds, or we come together just in a small group, friends and family, and we chant, that we're impacting the noosphere.
Yes. Actually, Srila Prabhupada also said this when there was a drought in some place that he had visited. And he actually said that the Harinam Sankirtan of the devotees, the chanting of the holy name, actually opened up the heavens and caused the drought to end. So, yes. But please, yes, you have a question.
Yeah, and he did say that if 1% of the population becomes devotees, he says the world will be saved and the atmosphere will be changed. So, but my question was to our duties that you talked about in the lecture yesterday, and there was a lot of questions about how to integrate our Svadharma with our Sanatana Dharma. And my question is that, isn't it also a question of finding a Swadharma that is easily connectable? Because some of the duties that we perform in this world, especially in the modern world, can seem very distant from actually direct devotional service. So as devotees, should we not also seek to find an occupation and like move towards an occupation that is more directly, easily connected to Krishna service?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so the occupation you do, they calculated it will amount to 80,000 hours of your life. That's how much time the average person will spend on their occupation in their life. 80,000 hours. And oftentimes what happens is we just do an occupation which gives us security, which gives us money, which allows us to survive in the world. But if one is wise, then they will try to find an occupation in which they can utilize their skills, their abilities, an occupation in which there's more goodness, the environment is more conducive, an occupation in which they perhaps have a certain amount of influence or power to bring spirituality into the equation, an occupation in perhaps which you have more free time and flexibility to then have other spiritual endeavors. And so yes, definitely, a lot of it is about finding a Swadharma, an occupation in this world which won't hijack your life, which won't then drain all of your energy, and which won't imprison you and limit you so much that outside of that occupation you have very little scope for spirituality. And therefore devotees do ingenious things to survive in the world, and whether it be forming their own businesses or becoming teachers of different Vedic arts or different things like that, you can also experiment. So yes, definitely. It's not just about connecting your Swadharma, but it's very much about finding a Swadharma which is more connectable. Yes.
And so really, yes, you're very much saying it, but really what I was fishing for is that for most of us who are not in saffron, that Swadharma is taking good care of our children. and to actually raise them to become devotees. Because so often we see that our children, they're not very interested in Krishna consciousness. And we willingly send them up to what Srila Prabhupada would call slaughterhouses of the soul. So I think that is something that should be very much emphasized when we're dealing with our Swadharma. It's not just about providing bread and butter and like money to the temple, but actually providing the encouragement for the next generation to engage in devotional service in a better way than we ourselves would hope to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that, Srila Prabhupada wanted that education, that nurturing to be there. And you see, definitely in this community, you see that the young devotees who have grown up here, they're of a different quality. They have a certain special blessing, a special spiritual strength that's there by dint of the fact that they grew up with this culture. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for wonderful class. My question is like sometimes mind tricks us. I mean, not sometimes, most of the times mind tricks us. But it became dangerous when it started giving, supporting its argument based on the Shastra. For example, we know like we should not ask for any material things from the Lord, but there is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Kama Sarva Kama. Then similar other verses. Then how do we understand when mind is tricking us and when it is actually helping us?
Yes, therefore Guru Sadhu Shastra Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. Yes, you can read Shastra, and the tendency is to read Shastra and then read whatever we want to read. You and I read the Bible day and night. I read black, you read white. Because we can read the same thing, but according to what we want to find, we will find that. Therefore, Shastra is never learned in isolation. It's always learned through teachers who help us to understand how to apply that Shastra. So yes, Krishna does say in the Bhagavad Gita, Akama, Sarva Kamo Va, Moksha Kamo Daradi. Even if you have all material desires, come to me. But then Krishna does also, the same Krishna later on in the Bhagavatam will also say that if one approaches me for material things, then they're less intelligent. Therefore, we have to understand each verse of Shastra in context of the full body of teachings. And that context of how to apply philosophy to our life is given by teachers. And so, yes, we can misuse anything. And in English they have a saying, even the devil quotes scripture. So anyone can quote anything for their benefit. But therefore we have to be sincere. Does that make sense? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question about something that's been on my mind for a while, and it also has to do with this aspect of organized religion that has immediately comes with rules and regulations. So recently I heard a statement that there is only one rule and one regulation, and that is to always think about Krishna and never forget him. So all of the other rules and regulations come to support this particular rule. And I have a struggle with following rules and regulations that I don't truly understand and that are not realized in my heart. So some things that maybe in the beginning of my Krishna conscious journey were very hard to take. With time I understood them, and it's so easy to do them now. But then still there is so many things that I feel like a complete cheater to myself, to devotees, to Krishna when I do those things. So
because you don't fully understand them, or you don't fully see the benefit of them.
And exactly, even if devotees explain me this, why should we do it, it still doesn't sink to my heart. So what to do with that?
Yeah. You see, just like you have that experience that there was a rule and regulation which you didn't really see the benefit of previously, but now you see the benefit of. So then that brings a humility within us that, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I don't know the best way to do everything. When we reflect back on our lives, there were things in Krishna consciousness we didn't understand, things which looked a bit weird. But now we think, no, actually that's a good thing. I've realized in my life that, there was a wider perspective than what I could see. So the first thing is that as we grow in Krishna consciousness, that humility should also grow. How do you know someone is advancing? Because their humility is growing. And why is their humility growing? Because they're realizing that there's a greater body of knowledge higher than me. There's a more wise way of living life than my mind has been telling me all these years. And because that humility grows, then that humility empowers us so that in the present times, if there are also things that we don't understand, things that we can't digest, things that we can't get our head around, because we have respect for the scripture, because we have respect for spiritual people, and because we've seen that so many times in the past, my perception changed, then we kind of go with it. We follow that. And but we keep an open mind and we ask questions and we try to understand it deeper. So I think both things can go hand in hand. Following even when you don't know, and questioning while you're following even when you don't know. Like, you can do both things. And it doesn't have to be that I have to get all the answers before I follow, or like that. So I think if you keep a balanced perspective like that, then over time things become more and more clear, and then you understand why you're doing what you're doing. But sometimes you can only understand why you're doing what you're doing once you've done that thing and experienced it. See what I mean? Like, sometimes you can't get the why intellectually. You have to get the why experientially. And to get the why experientially, it means you have to sometimes do it when you don't have the why intellectually. Oh my God, does that make sense? So I think you understand what I'm saying. Thank you.
Do you have to break the rules?
Do you have to?
You break the rules to see what happens.
Can you get the why by doing the opposite? By breaking the rules. You may, but that may not give you the full realization of why, because the mind tends to say, oh, I broke it in this way and it didn't work out, but maybe if I break it in another way, it will work out. So the more safe way of doing it is to find the positive benefit of doing it in the right way. Have you noticed how the material energy snookers us every time, but our mind just says, oh, maybe I just did it the wrong way, I can do it another way. So we generally don't find the truth by continually finding out what's wrong. We generally find the truth by actually discovering the truth, not by trying to cancel out all the wrongs, because the mind comes up with unlimited opportunities. Okay, I'm just looking here if there's any. Okay.
Maharaj, often people perceive devotees from the ISKCON community as being too dogmatic or being too close-minded, and I've often experienced in my social Indian circle that they think that I'm a bit too extreme. It doesn't really have to be like this, or we grew up with Krishna, we didn't do any of this, or and it can be very difficult to sort of I think you understand what
So sometimes people look at devotees of Krishna and they think you're so strict, you're so rigid, you so many rules and regulations. No meat, okay. No fish, okay. No onions and garlic. Come on, don't go over the top, So no tea, no coffee. I mean, So people tend to think that it's very rigid. It's too many rules and regulations. You see, what people have to understand is that regulation is not opposed to freedom. The free person is not the one who has the most choices in life. That's not freedom. People think in the world, the more choices I have to do whatever I want to do, the more free I am. But that's not freedom. Because you can have 50 billion choices, but if your mind is uncontrolled, then you're not actually making any choice at all. So the real freedom is not a freedom of choices. The real freedom is a freedom of discrimination to make the choice that resonates most deeply with your heart. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, these are regulative principles of freedom. How can regulation go together with freedom? Yes. Because say, for example, someone says, I drive my car, I don't care for any rules, I will be free, I don't stop at any traffic lights, I just drive, I'm a free person. And then they jump the red light and bang, they get hit. Well, there you are now. How free are you? You're completely immobilized. For all your freedom, you just ended up stuck in one place. And that's what people do in the world. So people think, no, I do what I want. Nobody tells me what I do. I make my own choices. But they're servants of their own mind, servants of the senses. So yes, it may seem to people like we're rigid, like we're following so many rules. But actually what we're doing is we're actually freeing our consciousness to experience life in its totality. That's one answer. There could be other answers. The other answer is that people are following just as many rules themselves to achieve what they want to achieve. For example, in their corporate career, they don't have to follow rules. There's so many unspoken rules you have to follow. You work in the corporate world, it's an unspoken rule. Nobody leaves the office before 9 p.m. Yes? It's not written in the contract, but everyone knows. If I leave, everyone's watching. I can't leave. I'm bound. So many people in the world are bound by rules and regulations. They also have to follow. So everyone's following rules and regulations. But we're following rules which will actually open up a greater freedom. And so that's what we're trying to share with people. I guess there could be other ways to say also, but these are some things you can say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have one question regarding this Sthita Pragya or equanimity. How do we reach that? While at the same time, like if something bad happens in our life, we have to process those emotions so that we don't remain into that traumatic situation. But at the same time, we say that regardless of something good or bad happens, we remain equal in both of them. So what is the difference? Like we are actually Sthita Pragya versus we try to be Sthita Pragya, but then those emotions remain stuck in ourselves.
Okay, so in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a range of verses where Krishna talks about something called Sthita Pragya. Sthita Pragya means someone who's a sage of the steady mind. In other words, they have a certain equanimity of consciousness that's not affected by anything of the material world. So your question is, how do we become like that without artificially like repressing our emotions? See, one becomes a sage of the steady mind not because they dull their emotions, but because their emotions have become invested in something far greater, far more wonderful, far more beautiful. When I was a kid and I was 13, I lost a badminton match, and for me it was the end of the world. But now, 30 years later, I kind of look back at it and think, what's the big deal? Because it doesn't mean that I don't have emotions anymore. But it means that now my emotions are much bigger. They're invested in something much greater. And so why would I be affected by such a small thing? So the Sthita Pragya is not that they don't have emotions, it's just that they have a bigger vision of life. You see? Here's a cup of water. Now if I put a palm full of salt in here, then it will taste salty. But now imagine we fill this whole room with water, and then I put a palm full of salt in. You're not going to affect anything. Palm full of salt is the same. But it means that the consciousness has become so wide that it can cushion it, it can absorb it, it doesn't get affected anymore. So it just means we have to have a bigger vision. You know, like sometimes you see a kid playing a computer game, like FIFA soccer or something, and they're like, oh no, I lost the game. So they're playing the computer game with so many emotions, and the parent is just looking at them kind of laughing. Like, it's just a computer game, relax, you know. Like, because they have a much bigger vision. And the devotee is sitting behind that parent and also laughing at all of them, saying that, why are you guys so absorbed in this world? It's just the whole thing is a computer game. This whole world is a computer game. You can't take the world so seriously once you become more and more absorbed in the spiritual reality. And therefore, one of our monks used to say, don't take the illusion too seriously. We take it so serious. So we become Sthita Pragya not by dulling our emotions, but by investing our emotions in something much broader, much bigger, much better, much more beautiful. That's Krishna. Does that make sense? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I was thinking one thing regarding all this, we speak about the regulations, and also our spiritual master who was really a practical person. And I was wondering if you can say something about, because there's also a few new here, about time, place and circumstance. Because I think what I see with many devotees is that if you're going through a tough time, you can, beat yourself up over it. But my guru always told me, no, you just, you pick yourself up, you start the next day. So I was wondering if you can say something so that if, there are someone that can't follow everything, that, Srila Prabhupada, he was always preaching, like Urmila Mataji, she was saying this one time in Vrindavan, that Prabhupada, he was preaching the ABC and XYZ to everyone. Even if a devotee or a person came to him and said, Srila Prabhupada, I cannot give up meat eating. He said, just don't eat cow. So he was preaching to everyone, and it seems like, in general, many places in ISKCON, we're only preaching to the ABCs, not the XYZ. So if you can say something also about time, place, circumstance. And then I also want to encourage all those that didn't ask questions, so that we can hear everyone, and those that have been asking questions, that they can, let the other ones ask.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, this is exactly what Krishna does in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, this is what you should do. Fix your mind completely on the spiritual reality. And then Krishna says, if you can't do that, do this. If you can't do that, do this. If you can't do that, then at least do this. And in other words, Krishna basically gives everyone an opportunity to get onto the ladder. This is why the Vedic theology is the most advanced theology in the world. Because it doesn't tell you do this or go to hell. But what it tells you is that there's a ladder, and you can enter that ladder anywhere you are. You want to have material things? No problem. Enter the ladder here. You want this? No problem. Enter the ladder here. And as you get on the process, then what happens is you develop a certain understanding that, there's something better than this. And you naturally go higher and higher and higher. So this is what we call multi-level spirituality. In other words, the spiritual process, this is why the Vedic theology is the most advanced theology in the world, because it accommodates everyone no matter where they are. And in that way, one doesn't need to feel that somehow or other Krishna consciousness is too high for them, or the ideals are too lofty, because there are so many stepping stones on the way there, and that journey is something that everyone can go on. So Srila Prabhupada was incredibly encouraging and accommodating, and always gave everyone an opportunity, no matter how, even if they made a big mistake, seemingly, Srila Prabhupada always gave them an opportunity to come back and re-engage with the process. So, yes, it's multi-level spirituality, and yeah, like that. We have to find through good company and good guidance where we need to be at our particular point, and then make the next step forward from there. Is that?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One challenge. You hear me? I have one challenge and one excuse.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the excuses was like I started to read Bhagavad Gita, but it's too complicated, like family trees, terminology I cannot understand. And when you offer actually help, like don't do it alone. No, I will finish myself and then I will come back to you. So if you can help me with that, because I find this a lot, and challenge, or I can wait for answer.
Okay, so some people say that it's too difficult to read, it's too difficult to understand, and then when you tell them take help, then they don't want to take help. They still want to read it themselves. Okay. So, you see, spiritual knowledge is not understood according, as I was mentioning, to one's intellect. Spiritual knowledge is understood according to one's receptivity of consciousness. Sometimes you will find actually that there are very simple people who are not necessarily academically very high, but they understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness perfectly. And sometimes there are scholars who study everything to the nth degree, but they still don't come to the right conclusion. They still don't somehow get it. Because remember what I said in the fourth chapter, Krishna says, Bhakto sime sakha cheti, you have to understand this through devotion. So if someone is not able to understand, then we offer them help, teachers. If they don't want to take that help, then we encourage them to continue reading. Another important thing is for them to render some service to Krishna. One time a person, he came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and he said, I have many questions I want to ask you. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, yes, but first go and wash the pots. And then come back to me. So because he was desirous of getting his answers, he did it. And after 1 hour he returned. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was ready and he said, no more questions. They were all resolved in devotional service. So sometimes we don't also resolve our misunderstandings or confusions about philosophy by just trying to intellectualize it more. We resolve it by actually developing a deeper heart of devotion. So like this, spiritual knowledge is very mystical. You don't know who is going to actually grasp it. Later on we'll have a drama about the Brahmin and the cobbler. And we wonder sometimes who is actually advanced, who has actually understood. And it's not an intellectual thing. Is that okay?
Can I just do a challenge? So personally I have challenge with sometimes I just want to do too many things at the same time. So I want to read the scripts, I want to start to learn playing kirtan, I just don't know how to ground myself, because or call someone, talk about Krishna, it's like explosion. So if you can help.
You're so enthusiastic that you want to do everything all at once.
Yes, please help me.
Wonderful. Yes, there's a famous verse in Niti Shastra that when you're chanting, you should think you're going to die tomorrow. But when you're reading and studying, you should think you're going to live forever. So why is that statement there? It said because when you're chanting, there should be an urgency, a feeling that, now I have to surrender at this point. But when you're studying scripture, there are certain devotional activities and devotional development that you have to have a very long-term vision. When you're studying, it's recommended that you should think you're going to live for a lifetime, because you can't understand all the scriptures in one day or in 1 week or in 1 year. And if you try to force the understanding in a quick way, then you won't actually digest it in the deepest way. And therefore, some aspects of our devotional service require the urgency that, no, I must do it now. And other aspects of our devotional development just require a long-term vision. Mark Zuckerberg, to quote one of the acharyas of our time, says, people underestimate what they can do in 5 years, but they overestimate what they can do in 1. Because we have this passionate mentality of trying to get everything done now. But we underestimate how much we can get done over a long period of time if we're consistent and if we're measured and we're steady and regulated. So there's an app you can get called Become a Sage Page by Page. And you'll be surprised, if you read the Bhagavatam 23 pages a day, I think it's 23, I'm not sure, then you'll finish it within 2 years, the whole Bhagavatam. Just 23 pages a day, not a big deal. 2 years, the whole Bhagavatam, all 18 volumes. So like that, don't underestimate the power of doing something every day, even if it's small. See, sometimes we were just, where was I? Yeah, we went for a walk in Stockholm by the river. And you see in the river, there are sometimes those rocks, and there's something dripping. Just a drop. Just a drop of water, but it's dropping for so many years. And then it creates a dent in the rock. That's the power of consistency. So in the world today, this is what we lack the most: consistency, regulation, and discipline. We want to do everything immediately, but Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time. So that discipline is required. Consistency. So, okay? Okay, here on this side.
One of the excuses I have faced while trying to reach out to some friends is one person just read on internet about Prabhupada and all the controversial statements of Prabhupada about women, about moon landing, about homosexuals and whatever. So the person says that if he said this, then I just can't accept whatever he said because it's too much hurting me, or it just doesn't make sense in the contemporary understanding of the things. So how do we remove that barrier?
Yeah, therefore everything always must be understood in context. For example, if someone took a transcription of the lecture I've just given, they could pick out any one line and isolate it, put it on Instagram, and assassinate your character. Because what people do is they take a line, but they take it out of context. And therefore, what we have to try to always do is give people context to the statements that are made. What are the contexts to the statements that Srila Prabhupada made about different things? What are the other things he said about the very same topic? What did he do in his life when dealing with this topic? How did he conduct himself? What were the experiences of those around him when talking to him about this topic? In other words, when we give people context, then they can understand something more clearly. But if you take anyone's statements out of context, you can assassinate anyone's character. And therefore, that's one of the problems of the world we live in today. that people don't have the patience to actually understand things in a wholesome way, but rather they just take one thing and make that the all in all. So just yesterday I mentioned, Prabhupada said they didn't land on the moon. But the amazing thing is Prabhupada himself from his own mouth also said other things about the moon. But people don't tend to quote that one. So therefore it needs to be understood like this. And that's the job of the devotee. The devotee should understand Prabhupada well enough to be able to help people get the bigger picture around his statements.
Just a follow-up to that, like moon landing, Prabhupada said different things at different times, but there are certain issues in which Prabhupada was very consistent about something, and it just is very contradictory to the current contemporary understanding or what is socially acceptable. So, how do we deal with that? It was not contextual, it's what consistently Prabhupada said the same about that.
Yeah. So again, we would have to see which statement you're talking about. But even if Prabhupada said something which was consistently against what, postmodern civilization can accept, that doesn't mean it's necessarily still a problem. We can also explain why he said that. What was the reasoning behind it? What is the kind of cultural and philosophical background to those statements? That we have to be able to... Do you want to say something specific?
No, Maharaj, I think you answered it, but if you can just explain the cultural background behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And Srila Prabhupada was also, although he was strong on certain points, he was also very, very flexible as well. And so he may have said something very, very strongly, but then when you look at Srila Prabhupada's, how he actually acted in his life and how he ran and expanded his movement, it was very flexible, it was very dynamic, it was full of so many adjustments, because Srila Prabhupada was also a dynamic thinker. He was also adjusting when necessary, like that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is borderline controversial. So we are Indians and we come from a country where if you don't make it, then it's very difficult economically. So we are quite insecure. So most of us Indians, we try to, for instance, many of us, other than preaching, also preach to have good education and good, have a stable job situation, so to speak. And then sometimes we meet devotees from the West, and then they don't really have a plan. And then they are coming from some intoxication history of this and that, and then I say, okay, maybe if you are not ready to for instance, become a brahmachari, at least have education, or at least something that will engage you, so that you don't succumb to all those tendencies. Is that a right advice? I mean, what should be a good advice in these? Because these people, they come, they join the movement for some time, and then they go back to their old ways because they are not ready for spiritual 100%, and then at least maybe they could have education or some engagement which is keeping them away from such darker propensities and such.
Sure.
Right. I mean,
So
some cultural advice. I don't know how. I mean, I could be, preaching as an Indian middle class, how I was raised, and could not really apply to Western Union.
Sure. In the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada is commenting on the pastime between Gajendra and the crocodile. And Srila Prabhupada is explaining that Gajendra was much more powerful than the crocodile. Naturally, an elephant. But because Gajendra was fighting in the water, which was an unnatural habitat, Therefore, Gajendra started to become weaker and weaker and weaker. And Srila Prabhupada, while commenting on that pastime, he said, everyone has to fight the material energy from a position of strength. In other words, everyone needs a stable situation in their life. That means a stable varna, that means a stable ashram, that means a stable social situation. And from that position of stability, one's ability to then fight the material energy and fight the illusion, one will gain more energy. But if one is unstable in their material life, then it will become very, very difficult in spiritual life also. So generally what you find is that there are some people who just neglect their material situation. And then there are some people who think their material situation and establishing it is the all in all until the dying day. They're establishing their varna, their career, their, thinking that that's success. So you can go off the road on both sides. Yes, there are some people who are very result orientated and want to establish themselves in society, and they can also go into illusion and miss the point of life. And there are some people who are just kind of don't care about all of that stuff and neglect it, and they can also miss the point of life. So yes, we need a material situation, we need that stability. So yeah, we should all encourage each other to find, and that may be different for different people. Different people need a different type of material situation to find that stability of mind. But yes, therefore Prabhupada said that Varnashram Dharma is so important. Because to do your spiritual endeavor without having a strong material stability is difficult. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Lord.
Okay, yeah.
It's one on the side there. Gabriel. Go ahead.
Maharaj, one question related to your personal experience, and I want to apologize for the question that might be steering away from our topic. But since and I apologize to everybody here, since we have a giant in the room, I would love to hear your personal experience, your darshan of Lord Krishna. One that you can share that stays with you.
The darshan of Lord Krishna? Someone asked me that this morning as well. I'm British, so I'll give a diplomatic answer. Krishna is appearing to us in so many different ways every single day. Krishna appears to us through material nature. Rasoham apsukonteya prabhashmi shashi shuryayo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdake porusham nishu. Krishna says, I'm there, I'm the taste in water, I'm the light of the sun and the moon, I'm the syllable om, I'm the sound in ether, I'm the ability in man. Every day, Krishna says to Arjuna, you have the opportunity to perceive my presence in all the material elements of this world. Krishna appears to us through the events of this world. I was really impressed when I came to the Hare Krishna movement because the devotees would always say things like, oh, Krishna's making a trick on us, or Krishna arranged that, or maybe Krishna's trying to tell us something. And that was really impressive to me because I never thought of Krishna as someone who was, or God, as someone who was so active in your life. Like God's up there, we're down here, you follow the rules, you don't get, make him angry, he won't get on your case, and everyone gets on with life. But here they were talking about Krishna as though he was like there every single moment, like interacting with them. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I never thought God would be so active and engaged and attentive and affectionate and alive. Yes, Krishna is appearing to us every single day through the events of life. One devotee said, I don't know how many times I've seen Krishna's face, but I see his hand every single day. So we see Krishna through the material elements. We see Krishna through the events of life. We see Krishna through other living beings. Krishna is in everyone's heart. Sometimes Krishna speaks to you through others. Once I picked up my phone while driving, and then police car stopped me. So then I came out of he knocked on the window, he said, step out of the car. So I came out of the car as, giant, saffron, monk. He looked at me like, oh my God, like what planet did you land from? So he said, you were speaking on your phone while driving. I said, no, I wasn't. He said, no, we saw you. I said, no, I wasn't. He said, Mr. Monk. The truth shall set you free. I looked at him, I was like, hey, you're stealing my lines. That's what I'm supposed to say to you. He said, the truth shall set you free. I said, all right, okay. We're monks, we're going to the mechanics. He goes, don't worry, I like you guys. You're good guys, but don't do it again. So yes, even a policeman, yes, the truth shall set you free. So anyone can see, Krishna is appearing to us in so many ways. So, I know it's not the answer you're looking for. I know you're fishing for something more. I know you're fishing for a darshan, a Shakshat darshan of Krishna, who came in the middle of the night through the window and played on the fifth note, captured my heart. Maybe not. Maybe not. But even if it did happen, I don't know. Once someone asked Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, have you seen God? And he said, you could ask me that question, but he said, what I would recommend is that you ask me the question, how can I see God? And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur then told him, don't try to see God. Try to act in such a way that God will want to see you. So, yeah, we want to see Krishna. George Harrison sings, isn't it? I really want to see you. I really want to see you, but it takes so long. So yeah, we're all trying to find Krishna. Even the Prabhupada said, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they never said they had seen Krishna. Hey Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite, Hey Nanda Suno Kuta. Oh Krishna, where are you? Are you at the foothills of Govardhan? Are you in the Yamuna? Are you in the groves of Vrindavan? Where are you? Where are you? We're looking for you. So that is our mood. We're searching for Krishna. We feel separated from Krishna. But the interesting thing is, in separation from Krishna, you meet Krishna. That's the mystical aspect of Vaishnava theology. In Vaishnava theology, separation is known by the word viraha. Viraha means separation. But viraha has a double meaning. Vishesha, rahasya, unmilam. Viraha means separation, but it also means vishesha, special, rahasya, confidential, unmilam, meeting. So the separation from God, the feeling of distance from God, the feeling that I really want to see you but I can't see you, actually brings a very, very confidential and special type of meeting. And in that sense, separation is meeting, and distance is actually coming together. So these are some of the ways in which I'm circumventing your question.
Context of what
Srila Prabhupada
Srila
says.
Prabhupada in this sense can present something. But
I'd like to take that question a bit more to probably and make it a bit more extreme and sensitive, so to say, in a sense that if we assume that like Guru or Acharya, I may say, like Krishna is God, we are spirit souls, servants of Krishna, and 2 + 2 = 5, for example. Like, and I, being an aspiring disciple, also am a mathematics teacher. So basically the question might be, can Guru be kind of technically wrong about secondary, unrelated, directed to spirituality topics? Like, for example, if I learn Vedanta from someone, I don't really care about politics views, his politics views or anything else like that. I know he is expert in Vedanta and I can learn Vedanta from them. But when it comes to the spiritual teacher, and also part of this question can be, if the Guru does say like that, what our responsibility in this sense is, should we really like justify somehow what Guru said, or what our own attitude should be towards these things?
So does the Guru have to know everything about everything? Does he have to be all-knowing? Once they asked Srila Prabhupada, a reporter said, does the Guru know everything? Prabhupada said, yes. The reporter said, how many windows in the Empire State Building? And Prabhupada looked back and said, how many drops of water in the mirage? Yeah, powerful. How many drops of water in the mirage? What are you going to say? 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000? Whatever answer you give, it doesn't matter, because it has no endurance in reality. It's not really real anyway. So a Guru knows everything about reality. The Guru knows everything about Tattva. Tattva means truth that is unchangeable in all times, places and circumstance. Therefore Krishna says, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshenti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. The Guru is tattva darshi. He understands everything about tattva. He understands everything about who am I, who is God, why does this world exist, why, how do we reawaken our relationship with God. We don't have to try to make the Guru omniscient. That's Krishna. Krishna says, Vedaham samatittani vartamanani charjana bhavishyani chabhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. Krishna says, I know past, present, future, I know all living beings, but me nobody knows. So Krishna is omniscient, Krishna is all-knowing, and a Guru doesn't have to be all-knowing, because a Guru is not Krishna. A Guru is not God. He's as good as God, but he's not God. And therefore, sometimes we artificially try. And therefore, if sometimes a Guru may say something, for example, a Guru misquotes a verse. Do we have to now artificially say, no, actually this verse must be there somewhere in the scripture because the Guru knows everything and it can't? No, maybe it was just a misquotation. But that doesn't reduce the power of the Guru in any way, because he's still Tattvadarshi, knows everything about truth. And so it requires to have a very mature understanding of the Guru without relativizing the Guru in any way. Does that help?
Yes, but then also one thing is that maybe Guru shouldn't be all-knowing in a sense, because Krishna is all-knowing. However, Guru might say something which probably isn't really technically correct about secondary things, and how should we deal with that? And probably other people also hear a Guru saying these things, and how we should relate, and like should we protect these words, or kind of how we should behave as being a Guru's followers.
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic, because yes, you're correct. In one sense, the Guru may say something that, on, for example, a social issue, and they may say something which has been proved otherwise by science. So now what do we do with that statement? Do we just say the Guru was wrong? Of course, we can say that the Guru doesn't have to be an authority in all of these situations, and that even if he was wrong, it doesn't reduce his character in any way. So we can say that. But we just have to be careful that in doing so, we don't start to relativize and bring the Guru down to a human level more and more and more, whereby we also start to question other spiritual things which can't be questioned. You understand? So it's always a balance between having that understanding and that respect that the Guru is clearly on a higher level of consciousness than everyone else, than me. And at the same time understanding that the Guru is not omniscient like God. So it's almost like you have to balance that very delicately. Because in saying one, you can compromise the other. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So sometimes we can also meet people who will start preaching their religion to you and saying that you should not be Hare Krishna, you should be Amit. You are out distributing some cakes on the street. And then on the other side of the street there were some Muslims and they put all their banners up and a big throne like that. And I was just curious, trying to just see, okay, what are they saying? Can we connect in some way? But the first thing that I got from this Muslim guy was that, well, first of all, everything that you're doing is wrong, Krishna is wrong, and you should just drop it and join us. I don't know, do you have any kind of experience with this? Is there, I know of course I just walked away, it didn't seem like there was anything.
At that moment, you give a prasadam cookie. Okay, so you will come across people who say their way is the only way, that this religion, that what you're doing is wrong. So the Bhagavatam is propounding a type of spirituality which is universal. Save pumsham paro dharmo yato bhaktir adoksaje. There's only one religion. There are not two religions. There's only one religion. And that is the religion of love. Anything which helps you to increase your love for God is real religion. And anything which doesn't is cheating religion. Finish. That's what the Bhagavatam says. So, the first thing we say when we meet anyone from any other religion is we say to them, is your religious practice making you more loving? Is it making you more loving towards other living beings? Is it making you more loving towards your environment? Is it making you more loving towards God? If the answer is yes, continue. Great. But if it's not, then something's wrong. And therefore, so much of what we see in religion today is not about love. There's so much hate. There's so much anger, so much animosity. This doesn't sound like real religion. If you're really religious, then you'll be able to have a loving heart. So we understand that whatever anyone may practice, if they practice it with sincerity, with purity, then they will gain in their love for God. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when I go into a church, I see, here is my same God being worshipped in a different ritual, under a different guise, with a different name, but the same God. So that's a universal vision of spirituality. So yes, we're able to see this, but at the same time, we're Hare Krishna. So why did you become a Hare Krishna if everything's good? Because every theology has different levels of evolution. And there are certain objective measures by which you can understand what's the highest and most evolved theology in the world. The first one is eternality. Which theology is relevant in all times, places, and circumstances? Another one is intimacy. Which theology gives you the most intimate and detailed knowledge of God? A third one is auspiciousness. Which theology actually creates auspiciousness in the world? A fourth one is beauty. Which theology is the most beautiful in its language, in its culture, in its description of the spiritual reality? A fifth one is accessibility. Which theology is accessible to all kinds of people? Now, these are objective measures which determine the evolution of a theology. And if you objectively look at every theological path in the world, every religion, and you score them on these 5 things, then our challenge is you will not find any theology which scores higher than the Vedic revelation. Therefore, when we say the Vedas are the highest, and we say that it's not a sectarian statement, but it's based on objective, measurable parameters. And I was mentioning this morning, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj came on national television. He said, if someone can show me a more advanced, evolved theological path, I will change here, right here. So then you can have an educated conversation with someone about this. But if they are going to come with dogmatic statements without any philosophical discussion around it, then it's not really a conversation which is going far. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can I ask you to say these 5 points again? They were
Yes.
gold.
Eternality.
Eternality.
Intimacy or detail of the philosophy. Auspiciousness, what creates a good effect. Beauty and charm. How beautiful is the theology. The truth must be, remember I was saying Einstein said that the truth must be simple, beautiful. And the 5th one is accessibility. Anyone, there's always an entrance point for anyone. Is that okay? Maybe 2 or 3 more questions and then we'll... I think here at the back there's a question. Yes, Prabhu, you can shout while we bring the mic to you. Emil, can you give him the...
What is the difference between dharma and religion? And when you say theology, is it the only Brahminical part of Varna?
Okay. Theology basically means knowledge of God. But let me come back to your point of dharma. So what is dharma? You said what's the difference between dharma and religion? So dharma has it's a very difficult word to translate. It comes from the Sanskrit root dri, which means to sustain or to hold, or which is the very essence of something. Dharma is also related to the word dhru or dhruva, which means a pole. Dharma is that thing which balances the extremes, that thing around which everything else revolves, that thing which is stable, although everything else may change. So dharma is a very difficult word to translate, but essentially dharma means the essential duties of a living being. The essence of a living being is dharma. So Krishna says that we have different types of dharma. Like I was mentioning, we have a swadharma, duties according to this body and mind. And then we have a sanatan dharma, a duty as a spiritual being. So is dharma and religion the same thing? Yes, people translate religion as dharma. What does religion mean? Ligare. That which again connects you to God. So if people are actually practicing religion, and if they're actually practicing dharma, then it will amount to the one and the same thing, that they actually get connected to God. So in that sense, we can say dharma and religion is the same thing. But sometimes Srila Prabhupada said dharma and religion is different, because it depends how you define religion. Religion is often sectarian, and therefore Prabhupada said dharma is not sectarian, it's universal. So again, these are words, and how we use them may differ, and therefore it's hard to. So Krishna comes to establish Dharma. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna says, I come to establish Dharma. And then the amazing thing is, 14 chapters later, what does Krishna say? Sarva dharman parityaja. Give up all dharma. So many people become mystified by this. Maybe there's a spelling mistake. Krishna must be saying sarva adharma parityaja. No. Krishna says sarva dharman parityaja. Because basically there is adharma, there's dharma, and then there's paradharma. And the paradharma, the ultimate dharma, is love. So Krishna says everyone has to live in their dharma. But later on Krishna says, give up your dharma. Not so that you go into adharma, but give up your dharma and embrace the paradharma, which is to love God. So if dharma doesn't lead you to love for God, then even that dharma is useless. Dharma svanustita pumsham vishvakshena kathashuya notpadayed yadi ratim shrama eva kevalam. If you practice your dharma but it doesn't lead you to bhakti, it's a waste of time. Does that help?
Yes, and if the religion is only intellectual part, what if it is Brahminical part of Varnashram religion?
Everyone has to follow dharma. So whatever, whether you're a Brahmin, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or a Sudra, everyone has a dharma. A Swadharma and a Sanatan Dharma. So dharma is for everyone. Dharma is the very essence of the living being. So everyone has dharma. Okay. Alright, I see a lot of hands. Maybe maybe 2 questions.
They will be ready 1 p.m. for the drama.
Okay.
They are ready.
Sure. So we should go to 1. How's everyone doing? Would you like to have a kirtan or? I mean, I'm okay, but it's a lot of hearing, no? To sit here and just listen.
Okay. Maybe 10 minutes more, and then we need 10 minutes to rearrange.
Okay, 10 minutes.
Maharaj, but what about the slides? Are we done with the Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, I just measured that we were not going to do 9, so then, do you want me to just show you all of them? The conclusion of all of these? Alright, I'll just show you the rest quickly. Okay, so one excuse people have is they say, I don't experience God. Oh, okay. Okay, maybe we can have the last question and then I'll quickly zip through all of these.
One girl here first.
Okay,
Yes.
sure.
Mike? Please. We should give the opportunity.
Hare Krishna. So I was reading Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, and it says that the Lord is without attraction or hatred, that He's impartial. But to me it sounds a little bit like impersonal, and I mean I know that Krishna can be everything at once and really contradictory. He has so many contradictory qualities, but it's hard to kind of know when. I mean, if sometimes he can break his own principles, or just like sometimes he will favor actually devotees over other people. So how is that impartial?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so here now we've got. So here Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so here Krishna says in the Bhagavad. Can you see that? Is it too small? Is it too small, or you can see it? You can kind of see it, right? So Krishna says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu na me dvesho stina priya. In the first two lines he says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. And then what does Krishna say in the next two lines? Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai te te shuchapi aham. But those who render service to me in devotion, to them I'm a friend, and they are also friends to me. So here Krishna is basically, one Acharya, he commentates on this verse, and he says this verse relates to two different aspects of Krishna. He says the first two lines of the verse relate to Krishna as the Paramatma. Krishna as the Paramatma in your heart just reciprocates according to whatever you do. In other words, he's just equal. He's just observing. He's the permitter. He's the overseer. And therefore, in that form, Krishna is not taking, he's just completely equal. But then he says in the next two lines, Krishna is speaking as Bhagavan, as a person. And so there is a side of Krishna which is very, very neutral, which doesn't discriminate against anyone, which is impartial to everyone. And then there is a deeper part of Krishna's character which becomes conquered, which becomes touched, in which Krishna says, Aham bhakta paradhino hyashvan tantra ivadvija. Krishna says, I am not independent. I'm completely dependent on my devotees. They've conquered me. I have no separate will. They are controlling me. So what to speak about Krishna becoming attracted and having affection? Krishna says, I become conquered, I become controlled, I become emotionally enamored by my own devotees. That's how much Krishna is involved. But there are other aspects of Krishna's character when he's dealing with the affairs of the material world in which Krishna is impartial and equal. So in that way, Krishna is impartial and equal, but he's also very emotionally involved at the same time. Does that help? Okay. So what shall I do? Shall I go through this thing? Or? Slides, okay. So we were going through all the excuses that people give and seeing how in every chapter of the Gita, Krishna actually answers those. So another one people often come up with is they say, I don't see God. I've never experienced God. So in the 10th chapter, Krishna answers this because he says, I'm everywhere. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. I'm the taste in water. In other words, first you have to hear about Krishna. If you hear about Krishna, then you'll be able to identify Krishna. Like for example, you see this. Let me ask you a question. Is James Campbell on the screen? Yes or no?
I don't know.
You don't know? Why don't you know? Is James Campbell on the screen? Yes or no? You don't know. Why don't you know? Because you don't know who James Campbell is. First you have to know who James Campbell is, and then you'll be able to understand whether he's on the screen or not. So how will you be able to perceive God in the world if you don't hear about God first? How will you be able to see? Maybe God's right next to you. But if you've not heard about him, if you don't know what he looks like, how he acts, how he reciprocates, how he's active in your life, he may be right next to you, but you won't see him. So Krishna says you can experience God, you can see God. But first you have to hear about God. You have to see in what ways does God become active in this world. In what ways does God make himself accessible to our perception. Then you can see God. Then anyone can see God. But just like you can't identify a person you don't know, you can't identify God if you haven't first learned and heard about him. And therefore God is alive, he's attentive, he's affectionate, he's active, he's there. But we have to hear. Sometimes people say, I have too many problems in my life, too many obstacles, too many challenges, my mind is overwhelmed, it's bewildered, I can't practice spirituality. Krishna says to Arjuna, this is exactly why you need spirituality. it's not that you solve all your problems and then once your mind is calm, then you practice spirituality. It's by practicing spirituality that you'll actually get the strength and the understanding and the presence of mind to be able to deal with the obstacles of life. So Arjun's life was full of obstacles. And then Arjun came to the biggest obstacle. And then Krishna ultimately in the 11th chapter of the Gita showed him the universal form. And Krishna said, don't worry, everything is going on under my plan. Just become an instrument. And therefore, if you actually want to overcome obstacles, you see, life is full of obstacles. Everyone will go through life quakes, relationship problems, a natural disaster, career and finances, physical and mental health, identity and meaning. Just like an earthquake, you don't know when it will come, you don't know where it will come, you don't know on what scale it will come. So similarly, everyone in their life will have life quakes. You don't know when it's going to come, you don't know how it's going to come, and you don't know of what nature it will come. But it will come, because everyone's life will be full of this. So Krishna tells Arjuna that when you align yourself with my plan, then what you learn to do is turn pains and problems into purpose and progress. And therefore, if someone says, I can't practice spirituality because I got too many obstacles, practicing spirituality is exactly what's going to help you get through that and grow from that. Okay? Chapter 12, sometimes people say, I lose all of my friends. This one I actually agree with. I have personal experience. But what Krishna actually explains in the 12th chapter of the Gita is that when you become saintly, when you become a saintly devotee, the first thing is you become friendly to everyone. Advaishta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna eva cha. Krishna says that the devotee, when they actually become spiritual, because they become free of envy, they're able to become everyone's friend. So when you come to spiritual life, yeah, some people you may lose some friends, but actually in the long term, you'll become friends with everyone. Because you'll be able to see everyone spiritually, you'll be able to see people without no envy in your heart. And when you see people with no envy in your heart, there's no way in which they can't be attracted to you. Definitely they will be attracted to you. Therefore, Krishna says that the devotee is dear to everyone and everyone is dear to them. And so you won't lose friends if you come to Krishna consciousness. You will make real friends. And the most important thing is you will make the best friendship with Krishna. Because in the 12th chapter, Krishna says, if you become a devotee with these qualities, you become very, very dear to me. So you don't lose any friends. Don't worry. If you come to Krishna consciousness, you're not going to lose any friends.
Only the bad ones.
Only the bad ones. Some people say, I'm already happy. I don't need spiritual life. There are different grades and different qualities of happiness. So yes, we're not saying that there's no happiness in the material world. You go on holiday, does that make you happy? Yes. Oh, something. Come on, don't be so fanatic and say no. Yes, when you go on holiday, there's a happiness. When you eat a nice meal, there's happiness. When you get an accolade or achievement in life, there's some happiness. But it's not a happiness of the highest grade. You may be the top of Division 2 in the football leagues, but it's still Division 2. There's higher divisions. So the happiness of this world is very limited, and the happiness of this world is flickering. I'm going to show you something, and I want you to tell me what interesting thing you see here. This was a survey done in April 2023, okay? April 2023, of the happiest countries in the world, okay? Released in April 2023. Tell me if you see anything interesting here. These are the 10 happiest countries in the world according to scientific research in April 2023. Can you see something interesting here? Israel. the fourth happiest country in the world in April 2023. By September 2023, you want to know what that country looked like? This. This is the happiest country in the world. Fourth happiest country in the world. 4 months later. What happiness is there in this world? It's all just flickering. It all just has an adi and an anta. Nateshu ramate buddha. And if one's intelligent, they don't even go there. Because it's all just flickering happiness. So Krishna says you can try to find happiness here, but there's no happiness here. It's all just flickering, it's all just transitory. And even when you have material things, you can buy a nice bed, but you can't buy. You can buy a luxurious house, but you can't buy. You can buy power and prestige, but you can't buy. You can buy phones and gadgets, but you can't buy. So what is this happiness that people actually talk about? It's not a real quality of happiness. And therefore people may say, I'm happy, but our point is that what is the quality of your happiness? And Krishna in the 13th chapter talks about Prakriti, Purusha, and Jiva, consciousness. And he says different people approach happiness in different ways. So anyway, I'm just going quick. Sometimes people say, I'm too bad. I've got too many bad habits. I'm not a saintly person. I feel like a crow amongst all these swan-like devotees. I don't think I can do it. Krishna says in the 14th chapter, nobody is a good person or a bad person. Everyone is just affected by different modes of material nature. And therefore each one of us have a false ego. A false ego which is under the modes of passion and ignorance. And when we're under the modes of passion and ignorance, then we have envy, greed, anger, lust. But what Krishna explains in the 14th chapter of the Gita is if you change the modes of nature, if you transform your ignorance and passion into goodness, if you gain spiritual knowledge, then that false ego becomes true ego. You actually understand by goodness and by spiritual practice who you really are, and then the envy turns to appreciation, the greed turns to satisfaction, the anger turns to tolerance, and the lust turns to love. So nobody is a bad person. We are just individual souls covered by different configurations of the modes of nature. And in the 14th chapter, Krishna explains how you can change your modes through association, through cultivation. Like that. Okay, let me just skip all of this. Forget about this. Pretend you didn't see that. Some people say, I lose my ambition. I don't want to practice spiritual life because then you become so otherworldly that you lose all your ambition to do anything here. You won't want to do good in your career. You won't want to make any effect in the world. You'll just become all about the spiritual world and you won't actually make any contribution here. Sometimes people say that. Have you heard people say that?
Yes.
This is also a complete myth because a devotee actually is the most ambitious. Because in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that the devotee is living in the reflection of the material world. And what it is that we're actually meant to be in the spiritual world, the real tree. And what a devotee is actually trying to do is get out of the reflection and go into the reality. A devotee is actually trying to get out of prison. A devotee is actually the most ambitious because the devotee is actually trying to achieve the greatest thing, which is release from the material world. I mean, what more ambition could you want than that? That's the most ambitious thing to try and do in this world, is to try and get out of this place to where we're actually meant to be. So therefore, no one can say a devotee is not ambitious. They're trying to do the most ambitious thing. But even while they're in the world, they're also ambitious. Because here's Srila Prabhupada. And who could be more ambitious than Srila Prabhupada? He was ambitious. He was thinking big, isn't it? Once they were driving past Buckingham Palace in London, and the devotee said, Prabhupada, one of the Queen's guards has become a devotee. So he was really impressed. So he told Prabhupada, one of the prison's guards, the Queen's guards has become a devotee. Prabhupada said, oh, and what about the Queen? Prabhupada was like, yeah, the guard, that's all right. We want the Queen. Queen should become a devotee. So Prabhupada was ambitious. He was at the age of 70. 14 times around the world, 108 temples, 60 volumes of books. I mean, I don't think you could be more ambitious. A devotee is ambitious, but they're spiritually ambitious. And they do it understanding Krishna is in control of everything. Anyway, I'm skipping through all this. Some people make the excuse, religion causes too many problems. Therefore, I don't get involved in spirituality. I don't get involved in what you guys do. Religion causes too much friction in the world. So what does Krishna explain in the 16th chapter? It's not religion that causes war in the world. It's demoniac mentality. Asatyam apratistam te jagatahur anishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kamahaitukam. Krishna says the demoniac people, they say there's no God in control, that we're all chemicals, that we came from nothing, that we go into nothing, that the world is unreal, and that everything's matter. And if everything's matter, nothing matters. That's demoniac mentality. So when people reduce everything to chemicals and say everything is matter, they have no problem shooting down thousands of people. Because after all, they're just chemicals. So what causes war in the world? A lack of spiritual vision. And here's a statistic. If you actually want to see how many wars and conflicts in the world, there are more conflicts and wars that were caused by non-religious things than religious things. If it was true that only religion causes war, then that would mean the secular places in the world would be the most peaceful. That's not true. In fact, the secular places in the world are often where the biggest conflicts take place. So Krishna says war, friction, conflict in the world is not created by religion. It's created by a lack of genuine religion. Some people say, I've seen too much hypocrisy in religion. I don't believe in all of this. You guys say one thing, you do another thing. So in the 17th chapter, Krishna says, there are different modes of nature. There are different divisions of faith. And even within one spiritual movement, you can find people who are of a different quality. It's not that when we come to the Krishna consciousness movement, everyone is like on the topmost level. No, we're all at different levels. And therefore, yes, you may find some devotees who fall short of the ideal. Yes, devotees sometimes lie. Yes, devotees are sometimes weak. Yes, devotees sometimes have bad qualities. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So there's hypocrisy everywhere. Politicians are hypocritical, but you still have to vote for one of them. The media is hypocritical, but you still read a newspaper. Shops are lying to you, but you still buy things from them. So that's the world we're living in, because it's the material world. There will be hypocrisy, but instead of looking at the bad examples, look at the good examples. And the final one is someone may say, I don't want to be forced, I have to do it naturally. And Krishna says, yes, do it naturally. Because Krishna tells Arjuna that there's no force here. We don't force anyone to do anything here. Because Krishna says to Arjuna at the end of the Gita, Iti te jnanamakyatam guyat guyataram maya vimrasheta desheshena yathechasi tathakuru. I've given you all the knowledge. Now you think about it. Now you contemplate it, challenge it, analyze it, reflect on it, think about it. Yat icha tathakuru. And then whatever is your desire, that you do. We don't force anyone. Up to you. Free will. You are your own person. So we're not forcing anyone here. Do it from the heart. So like this, so many excuses. And if you look in every single chapter of the Gita, Krishna is so expert in how he deals with Arjuna that he actually removes every single one of these excuses. So now you have no more excuses. Hopefully. Thank you so much for your attention, for your participation, for your questions. I hope it was useful in some way. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.